Just believe yourself. Don't give up. 자, 지난 3월에 북드라마에서 이 책을 여러분에게 소개한 적이 있었어요. 그죠? 돈의 심리학. 이 책이요, 2020년에 아마존에서 최고의 금융책으로 떠올랐었습니다. 지금도 굉장히 사랑을 많이 받고 있고요. 저는 여러분이 이 책을 얼마나 많이 좋아해 주실까 궁금했는데 세상에 정말 반응이 폭발적이었습니다. 28만 조회수에다가 거기다가 600건이 넘는 여러분의 댓글이 달렸어요. 그래서 이걸 보고 또 가만히 있을 수가 없잖아요. 그래서 제가 모건 하우젤에게 부탁을 했습니다. 연락을 했죠. 우리 같이 인터뷰합시다. 당신의 얘기를 직접 들려주세요. 그랬더니 모건이 오케이 해서 인터뷰를 하게 됐습니다. 자, 여러분, 제가 그동안 궁금했던 거를 이 책을 읽으면서 정말 궁금했던 거를 제가 모건에게 물어봤거든요. 여러분 인터뷰 한번 보시면서 여러분에게 금융 인사이트, 요즘에 정말 필요하잖아요. 금융에 대한 나만의 철학, 이게 없으면 돈이 있어도 금방 다 잃습니다. 자, 나만의 철학을 어떻게 단단히 만들어서 내 돈을 잘 지키고 내 돈을 잘 불려나갈 것이냐, 최고의 금융 전문가 모건한테 한번 들어보시죠. My guest today sheds light on this simple yet difficult question with his book, The Psychology of Money. Morgan Housel, hello, it's such a pleasure. Nice to meet you. I'm NK Kim. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
So first of all, welcome to my show, The MK Show. We are a YouTube channel with 1.3 million subscribers, and we are all ears.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here and to be able to speak with you. I love speaking with investors from other countries because we're all kind of playing the same game with money, but we have different perspectives and whatnot. So it's really an honor to get to do this.
And now I want to pick your brain on some of the lessons in your book. How does it sound?
Good. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay. And first of all, why don't we start with the title of your book, The Psychology of Money? Now, most people think becoming wealthy is about being good with numbers, but you say it's about how we behave. Could you elaborate?
Well, here's the thing. You can be the smartest financial mind in the world. You can have a PhD in finance from Harvard. You can know all the formulas. You can understand finance to the highest degree. But if you don't have a good relationship with money in terms of how you think about greed and fear, if you're unable to take a long-term mindset, then your bad behaviors can counteract all of the technical knowledge that you have. I guess one other analogy to this would be like something like medicine, where you can be the smartest doctor in the world. You can understand everything about biology and being a doctor. But if you don't exercise and you sit around and you eat ice cream and hamburgers all day, none of what you know is going to make a difference. It's how you behave that actually matters. People who have no financial education, no training, no experience, they end up doing very, very well because they've mastered the behavioral side of investing. A lot of smart investors do very poorly. I don't think there's any correlation in investing to how smart you are with how well you do. I don't think there's any whatsoever. It's just the biggest correlation is just, are you patient? Are you greedy? Can you keep a cool mind? Can you keep your head on straight when the world is falling apart like it has in the last year? That's what makes a difference. How smart you are really makes no difference whatsoever.
Right, absolutely agree with you. You say people's lifetime investment decisions are heavily anchored to their experiences, especially experiences early in their adult life. So, you know, that this made me wonder what your experience was. Could you take us back to your early days?
Sure, and it's so fascinating to have this conversation with you because when you're speaking with someone who's from a different country, we have very different experiences just from where we've grown up in our life.
Right.
But if I take you back to my early days, what's interesting about my childhood is I grew up ski racing, downhill skiing, which meant that I didn't go to high school in the United States. It meant that I spent all my teenage years skiing, and my education, my schooling was kind of pushed aside. I really didn't do that much for it. I did kind of a side program that checked the boxes that let me get away with it, but I really didn't have virtually any education in my teenage years. Now, I made up for that when I went to college and whatnot, But I had this kind of interesting background that made me feel like I was just a little bit different from other people. I still went to college, but I didn't go to school in the same way that they did, which always just made me feel like I had a little bit of chip on my shoulder and whatnot, even though I felt like I could learn, I was into reading and whatnot, but it always just made me feel a little bit different. And then I started working at a very nice luxury hotel as a valet. I was parking cars at the hotel. And that was my first experience with wealthy people. I got to see these wealthy people who were coming and driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Bentleys. It was the first time that I got to see wealthy people. And it was astounding to me. It was a window for me into two things. One is I said, I want to be that person. I want to be that guy driving the Ferrari. That was one experience. The other was slowly realizing that a lot of these people actually didn't seem that happy. They did not seem to me like they were that smart, I would say. Not any smarter than anyone else in the street. I expected at first that these successful people were going to be geniuses. And when I got to know them, I would be blown away with how intelligent they were. And that was not the case. It was not the case at all. I realized that a lot of these people, there were two things. One is a lot of these people were not that successful. They just spent a lot of their money on a car. But when I got to know them, they weren't really actually that successful. Or they were very successful, but they became wealthy through just common sense, simple businesses, simple investments. The amount of actual brain power and financial knowledge going into that wasn't that high. So that was a formative experience for me. It's just how I saw that growing up.
Right. Yeah. Now let's talk about the current situation in Korea. So you said many young people are struggling with the making money, how they can make money, but yet they choose that there is the only thing we can make money, the investing their money in the stock market right now. So these days many young people are investing their money in the stock market right now. Of course, some of them can make money, but there are more people who lose it. So what advice would you give to those young people?
What the advice that I would give to young people and everyone, and this is true in every stock market in every nation around the world, is that investing is a long-term game. And when I say long-term, I don't mean 6 months or 1 year. I don't even mean 5 years. I mean 10 years or more. That's the single biggest mistake that people make in investing. Is they will invest their money in the stock market, and when they lose money a month later or 6 months later, they will say, it's rigged, I didn't do very well, I'm going to sell, I give up. And that's true in the United States as well, it's true everywhere. That if you can stick around and be patient for 10 years, it's a long time, 10 years, then the odds are in your favor that you will do well over time. But the shorter your time horizon, the more you are relying on luck to fuel your success. So it's not to say that if you invest in the stock market that you won't make money over the next 6 months or the next month. You might, but you're relying on luck. Versus if you're investing for 10 years or longer, there's a much greater chance that the investing returns from companies that are earning profits are going to accrue to you in a way that you can actually count on and put some faith in. So that's how I invest as well. Like I have a lot of my money in the stock market, the majority of my money in the stock market, but I plan on leaving it there for 30 or 40 or 50 years and just letting it grow and letting it compound. So I think if people can view investing through that lens over what's going to happen over the next decade or longer, then they should feel good about their investments. If they're viewing it over what's going to happen over the next 6 months or the next 1 year, then it's a completely different game.
What do you think about Bitcoin market?
It's fascinating to watch. I don't own any Bitcoin, and I would not bet against Bitcoin either. It's fascinating to watch. Here's kind of the both sides of it. Does Bitcoin have any intrinsic value? I think the answer to that is no. But this is a very important but. If enough people believe something is true, then it is just as powerful as it actually being true. And so many people believe in Bitcoin that it actually gives it real, sustainable, legitimate value. And I think the longer it's been around, the longer it sticks around, the higher the odds that it turns into a real, durable, sustainable thing. And it's been around long enough, and enough people now believe in it all over the world that it has value. And I think it'll maintain having value. I do think, though, that if there is the best analogy for what Bitcoin is, it's digital gold. It's 21st century gold. And so then we can look at the history of kind of what gold has done. And the history of gold is a lot of booms and busts. It'll rise fivefold and then fall 70%. And if I had to make a guess about what Bitcoin's future will be, It's probably something like that. It's
Okay.
probably huge rallies and then huge collapses and over again. And maybe during the next rally, it's higher than it was before. So people who are just staying in it will do well over time. But I would expect that the amount of volatility that you'll see in Bitcoin over the next 10 or 20 years, it'll still be around in 10 or 20 years, but the amount of volatility that'll take place between now and then, I think will be extraordinary.
Many people want high return because, yeah, that's why they invest their money in the Bitcoin market, yeah? High return and very high risk, yeah?
Yeah, and a lot of those people, even if they get the high return, once they experience the high risk during the collapse, the inevitable
Yeah.
collapse in any asset, they won't be able to stick around. As soon as it collapses, they'll sell and they'll say, no more, I don't want to touch this ever again. Happens every single time in every asset. Gold, stocks, real estate, bonds, it's the same story again and again. So I think this is, to me, why, if you want to do well over the course of your life, what you really need to do is stick with your investments for a long period of time.
Okay.
And you're going to have higher odds of sticking with your investments if they are simple and you understand them.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think something that's, potentially high returns this year, like Bitcoin, as it's definitely been over the last decade, even for Bitcoin. But how many of those investors will actually be able to stick around during the next major decline?
Yeah.
A lot of them are going to get washed out, as they already were in 2017 during the last collapse. So that, to me, is the argument for me for just keeping it simple so I can stick around for the longest period of time.
I like your concept of getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. What I understand about this concept is everyone can be rich, but not everyone remains rich. Am I right? Yeah.
I would temper it to say not everyone can be rich, because there is a certain level of luck and experience and whatnot that is required to become rich. But the point is just separating them into two separate skills. That in order to get rich, you need one set of skills, and in order to stay rich, you need a completely different set of skills.
Okay.
And oftentimes those skills conflict with each other. Like, getting rich requires being an optimist and swinging for the fences and being optimistic about the future. That's what you need to get rich. Staying rich requires almost the polar opposite.
Okay.
You need to be a little bit pessimistic, a little bit paranoid even, and just acknowledging that history is a constant chain of bad news and setbacks and disappointments and recessions and bear markets and pandemics. That you need to be able to survive financially in order to stick around long enough for your optimism to really pay off. So a lot of people who are only optimistic will end up getting scared out of the market or going out of business during the inevitable recession. It's the people who are optimistic about the future, but are also paranoid and pessimistic enough about the short run that they can combine those two. And kind of one way that I frame this is saying, look, people should save like a pessimist, but invest like an optimist.
Yeah, exactly right. That's why you use that. Yeah, the making money depends on psychology, not the numbers. You talked about Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and their friend Rick Guerin, in this book. So could you tell us more about this story? This story is very interesting. Yeah.
It's a fascinating story to me.
Yeah.
Most investors know the investing duo Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. They've been investing together, running Berkshire Hathaway for more than 60 years now, and they're kind of the two most famous investors in the world. But it turns out that if you go back to the 1960s and 70s, there was a third investor in this group, a guy named Rick Guerin. And they were a trio. Warren, Charlie, and Rick were investing together. And they made investments together. And Rick Guerin could have been kind of the third guy in Berkshire Hathaway to become one of the most famous investors of all time.
But he's
and
gone.
he stuck around, and he was a fund manager, but he did not become nearly as famous as Warren and Charlie. So several years ago, a hedge fund manager named Monish Pabrai had lunch with Warren Buffett. And he said, hey, what happened to Rick Guerin? I know he used to be part of the group in the 19th, and then he's kind of disappeared. And Warren told him the story. And the story was this. Back in the 1970s, Rick Guerin had a lot of margin loans. He was borrowing money to invest in the stock market. And when the market declined in the 1970s, his bankers called him up and said, we need our money back. And he was forced to sell his stocks, at least to cover these margin loans. And here's how Warren Buffett framed it. He said, look, Charlie Munger and I always knew that we would be wealthy. He said they were never in a hurry. They knew it would happen. They were not in a hurry. He said Rick was just as smart as that, but he was in a hurry. He was impatient. He wanted to get rich fast, which is why he was using borrowed money to invest. And I just think that's such a telling takeaway, that the guy who wanted to invest really quickly and wanted his money today. He was in a hurry to get rich. Ends up kind of going bust. Whereas the guys who are not in a hurry became the wealthiest men in the world. That's an important takeaway for all of us.
You never hurry, okay? You never in a hurry, okay? We never in a hurry. That's the key.
I like
okay.
it. Patience. I like it.
Okay. So you mentioned the saving rates in your book. You said the saving can be created by spending less. You can spend less if you desire less, and you will desire less if you care less about what others think of you. But there are so many people, who have difficulty saving money. So how do we do that?
Well, look, I think for a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people in the developed world,
Yeah.
your ability to save largely has to do with your ego and how much you care about how other people think of you. So a lot of your spending on a nice car, nice clothes, a nice house is really just to signal to other people that you're doing well. It doesn't give you a lot of advantage, doesn't give you a lot of benefits, just signal to other people. And when you view it like that, again, that's not for everyone, but a lot of people in the developed world, that is the case for them. And if you view it that way, then your ability to save more money is largely in your control. It's not necessarily about earning more money. It's how can you just lower your expectations and be comfortable with a lower lifestyle in a way that's going to allow you to save more money. Learning to live within your means is the most powerful lever that you can pull in investing and in finance.
So you define the difference between wealthy and rich. In general, people think those two are the same, but you say rich is current income, but wealth is hidden. It's income not spent. To me, your definition is very interesting. Could you tell me in more detail what this means?
Well, look, if you have enough money to buy a nice car, have a nice house, make a big mortgage payment, then I can call you rich. Like that, I think that's a fair definition.
Yeah.
Wealth is something totally different. Wealth is the money that you have not spent. It's money that you've saved in the bank, in your investment accounts that you have not spent. That's what wealth is. It's the money that you've earned that you haven't spent. And that's really important because it means that wealth is what we don't see. Wealth is the car we didn't buy. It's the house we didn't buy. It's the clothes we didn't buy. And that means it's invisible. We don't see it. And I learned this because so many of these people that I met in Los Angeles who were driving Ferraris and Bentleys and Rolls Royces turned out that they're actually not that wealthy. They were just spending all of their money on a car. And I think most people want to be wealthy. Most people want to have money to give them freedom and control and independence. That's what they want. But actually, if they get their hands on money, they spend it. And the fastest way to have less money is to spend money because you want to show people how much money you have. Like that's the fastest way to get rid of your money is to show people how much money you have by spending it.
Yeah.
So I think if you view that what most people want is independence, and what independence is, you gain that from your savings, your money that you have not spent. That's really what wealth is. That's been really important for me personally, and it's an overlooked part of money, I think.
Do you have financial freedom?
Yes, I mean, to me personally, and I write about this in the book. I talk about how my wife and I handle our money. I don't give any numbers, but I say, here's what we do. And all that I want is independence and freedom. I just want to wake up every day and say, because I've saved money, I can do what I want, when I want, with whom I want, for as long as I want. And no one gets to tell me what to do. No one gets to tell me when to do it. I can do anything I want on my own terms because I've saved enough money to make me independent. Now, most days I'm going to wake up and say, I want to go to work today. That's what I want to do. I want to be productive. I want to do good work. I want to write another book. That's what I want to do. But I'm doing it on my terms. I'm doing it because I want to do it versus waking up and having to go to work where someone else is going to tell you what to do so that you can pay the bills that someone else is telling you that you owe at this time. Like that to me is just a level of structure that's not very appealing to me. I think a common denominator of all humans is they desire to be free and independent and autonomous, to be able to do what they want. Everyone wants this out of money. And I think what's important is that we often overlook that money can do that for you, that money can give you independence. And so I think it's different for everyone. But for me, independence is all that I want out of money, which is why I have a high savings rate so that I can do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it.
Now let's talk about a little tricky topic. Even if we do become wealthy, it never feels enough. It is very difficult topic. You said in your book that the hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. So point blank, how do I do that?
You always want more. You
Yeah,
always,
more and
always
more.
want more, no matter how much you have. And it's obvious if you think that way to realize that you're never going to be happy. If you're always wanting more, you're never going to be happy. So I think that, as I frame it in the book, it's the most important but the hardest financial skill is to get the goalposts to stop moving and to get to a level where you say, I have enough. Like it would be like, sure, it might be it might be better if I have more money, but I have enough now. I'm not going to keep taking more risk, and I'm happy and thankful for what I have right now. It's so hard to do, and I fall for it as
Yeah.
much as everyone to reset your expectations. But I think that to the extent that we can push back on that, it's the only way that we'll ever feel good about the money that we have.
Yeah. Do you say I'm enough right now? It is really difficult to say I'm enough. You know?
So here's where my wife and I are.
Okay.
We are. Do we have enough today? Yes. Do I want more? Yes.
Okay.
That's where we are today. But here's the thing: if my net worth stayed where it is today for the rest of my life, I would say, okay, that's okay, that's fine. But do I still aspire for more? Yes. I'm really grateful for where I am today. And if I never have more money than I do today, that will be okay. I still want more, but it's okay if I stay at this level.
So I tell you an interesting story. About 200 years ago, during the Joseon era, there was a merchant called Im Sang-oh. He always carried a special cup with him. It was special because it could only be filled up to 70%. If the cup was filled beyond that, the cup would drain its entire contents. By carrying this cup with him, the merchant reminded himself not to drink excessively and also not to be greedy. He always said too much can be as bad as too little. I think this lesson is similar to your analogy of the goalpost. Yeah, have you heard this story before?
No, but that's a great story. And we've actually seen this in the last week with a hedge fund manager in the United States, who his personal net worth was $10 billion. Very, very wealthy. And he went bankrupt because he was borrowing so much money. And that to me is so fascinating that someone can be that successful, that wealthy, one of the richest men in the entire world. And he goes bankrupt because he wanted more so badly. Another story about this is Bernie Madoff in the United States, who was the famous Ponzi schemer.
What is
who
his
was
name?
arrested.
What's his
Bernie
name?
Madoff. Bernie Madoff is his name. He
okay.
was arrested in the United States in 2008 for running the largest Ponzi scheme. He was running an investing fund that was a total fraud. The whole thing was a fraud. And now he's in jail for life. He'll be in jail for the rest of his life now. And what's interesting about this is that Bernie Madoff, before he started his fraud, was running a legitimate business, not a fraudulent. He was running a real business, and he was making $50 million per year. That's what he was making. He was incredibly successful and wealthy, but he wanted more so badly that he created fraud. He created a fraud business because he wanted more so badly. That to me is fascinating. When someone is that wealthy and they want more so badly that they're willing to risk everything, that to me is fascinating. And also this hedge fund manager, Bill Wong in the United States, who was worth $10 billion. And he borrowed so much money that he went bankrupt last week. That to me is astounding. That to me shows how big this problem is, that it is so hard to find an area where you have enough. And here's the thing. I think for most people, the richer they get, the greedier they get. It's the opposite of what you would think. The more money they have, the more money they want. That to me is the most interesting thing in the world. That it's not like this doesn't grow linear. It grows exponentially. The more you have, the more you want. And the richest people in the world are some of the greediest. That to me is fascinating.
Yeah.
But when the richest people in the world end up going to jail or bankrupting themselves because they want more, that to me is astounding.
They need this cup. They need this
They need
special cup.
the
Yeah,
cup. They need that cup.
Yeah, I show you something you're gonna be very interested with. Okay, this cup.
You have the cup? I love
Yeah,
it.
I have this cup. We call this cup Gyeongbae in Korean. This cup that I was talking about. Let me show you how it works. Okay, I have some water here. I'm going to pour some water to the 70% mark. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, can you see that? Okay, 70% of mark. All right, It is fine. Yeah, you can drink from this cup, but
Yep.
I'm gonna pour more samara to the brim. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Watch carefully. Did it up to the brim. Oh my God! Can you see that? It
Now it's going
drains
out.
out. Yeah, it drains
Wow.
out. It
We
drains
should.
out.
I think everyone needs a cup like that to carry with them on
Oh
the.
yes, right. Yeah, right. So there's nothing left.
I love it. That's
Bankruptcy.
so cool.
Yeah. So this cup teaches us not to greedy and then not to drink excessively and not to be greedy. Okay. So that guy, really need this cup. The carrying to this cup to remind it themselves not to be greedy, right?
I love it. That's great. That's such a
That's
good
good.
reminder for everyone.
Have you ever seen this cup before? No?
I've never seen it, but I want one.
Wow, wow. So, all right, then you really want to carrying this cup?
I
To
would
have
do
this
it.
cup? Okay, then I'll,
I would do it. Yeah.
yeah,
I would
okay.
carry it.
Then
I
I
would keep
want
it
to
on my
give
desk as a
the,
reminder.
great, I want to, gift this cup to you then.
Okay,
Oh,
that would be wonderful. If you do, I'll take a picture of it on my desk and send it to you. I'd love
all
it.
right, okay, all right, great. I knew about this cup 10 years ago. So I read your book. Then at the same time, this cup just came up to me. Okay. Wow. He is want to trying to sing about this cup. So yeah, when I read your book that, oh wow, I have to show this cup to you.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's hard for everyone, and it's great to say that's such a good reminder.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I've seen a better example of making that point than that cup. I like it.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to gift this cup to you. Okay.
Thank you so much. I
Right.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. This will be the last question today. As you know, everyone around the world is changing faster than ever after the pandemic. There are many people who are struggling with the situation because they are losing their jobs and facing financial difficulties. In order to get through this, what should we prepare in these COVID times?
Here's one thing to think about that I think
Yeah.
is so easy to overlook with what's going on in the last year. When most of the focus of the last year, as it should be, is on the tragedy of COVID and the suffering, the death of COVID. That's what we focused on, as we should. But here's one silver lining I think is easy to overlook. If you look historically, all invention, all innovation, the big leaps forward that we have in the world come during times of stress. There's already a study that has been put out in the last 2 weeks that shows that we are very close now to making a vaccine for malaria using the same technology that we've used for a lot of the COVID vaccines that we learned about over the last 12 months. So when you have this panic-induced innovation, it is easy to overlook the benefits that are going to come from that, but it is almost certain. I don't know where, or I don't think anyone knows what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But I think it is certain that 10 years from now, we will look back and say, because of COVID-19, not in spite of, but because of COVID-19, we have this incredible new innovation that is benefiting the world and saving lives. I think that is almost guaranteed at this point. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but that's always the case. That through a tragedy, it induces an amount of innovation and invention that ends up benefiting society to an incredible degree. So I think amid all this suffering, hopefully we're coming to an end and seeing the light at the tunnel now. But I think amid all the suffering that we should respect and think about, of course, is a silver lining that I think is going to benefit us in the future for future generations to come.
Oh, thank you very much. And then, so the last year, that was the last day I gave a speech in offline, offline. And then 2020, 22nd January, that was the last day. So I gave speech. So, everything is just came to heart completely.
Yeah.
So I can't meet my audience. So I think about, how can I survive in this COVID times? Okay, there's no income. So I just let my employees go. So I don't want that. So I established online university called MKYU. They are learning about how to deal or how to make their own business in digitalized world.
And that would not have occurred without COVID. Is that what you're saying? So there's all these benefits that are easy to overlook that end up creating great things.
Then I think we are a more opportunity, more chance to have a new business on digitalized world.
Yes. You and I would not be doing this if this was 2019. This is like people never did this. Like in a different country. I do a lot of speaking for my job as well, and I would fly to Korea to do something like this. But that's a much bigger. It's harder for everyone to do that. If we can do this over Zoom, it's a totally different world.
Wow,
Yes,
that is great.
and I think more people are just more comfortable doing this now. Whereas 1 year ago, the idea of speaking over Zoom on camera just felt weird to people. But everyone's used to it now. Now this is totally normal.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm really happy to have a great relationship with you. Today is just a start, right?
I would appreciate that. This has been really a joy and an honor to get to do. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, and maybe next year COVID is going to be over. Then you're going to visit Korea. Then I'm going to visit you.
I'll do it. The last international talk that I gave was in Korea. So I've been before, and I'd love to come back.
Thank you so much for your insight, and thank you so much for your time today. It was really helpful. I'm sure many Korean readers feel the same way. So lastly, is there a message would you like to tell to Korean readers?
Well, thank you again for having me. It's an honor to get to do this, so thank you very much. If there's one message from the book that I would leave you with, I think it would just echo what I just said about COVID, that even though we're going through the hardest year of most of our lives, I'm still as optimistic about people's ability to solve problems and create value and create a better world than I have been. If anything, I'm more optimistic now than I was back then, just because there's been so much innovation over the last 12 months that I think will be paying dividends for years to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You gave me many hope. Okay. Thank you for your time today. Okay. I hope to talk to you soon again. Okay. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye. Take
Take care.
care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.